Can you hear me in the back? Okay, fantastic. Thanks. Well, look, I thought it'd be helpful to show you what's going on site. So those pictures are over the last quarter. Obviously, we're at the tail end of our construction activities. We're at the beginning of our commissioning activities, and I think we're at the start of a long and bright future for Cyprium Metals as we return to copper production expected in the third quarter, ramp up across the fourth quarter, and we should be doing about 6,000 tons of cathode production next year and growing into the rest of our brownfield asset. So I'm Matt Fifield. I'm the Executive Chair of Cyprium Metals. I'll be making some forward-looking statements today. Please treat those with caution. Our central assets are in Western Australia. This is a large sediment-hosted copper deposit that has been a prolific producer from 1993 to 2019. You'll note that we'll be mostly talking about the Nifty Copper Complex. So we've got a huge mineral endowment. We have about 750,000 tons of copper and sulfide reserve. We have about 40,000 tons of copper in our SXEW above ground heap leach pads. And then what you'll note in the center is that we've not yet declared an oxide reserve on the remnant oxides on top of the sulfides in our open pit. You should expect that to be coming in this third quarter. On site also, we have two processing plants. First, we have a 25,000 ton capacity SXEW. Those were the pictures that you saw just a moment ago of us refurbishing that and getting ready to bring that into production. Second, we have a 50,000 ton a year float plant and a 2.8 million ton a year capacity mill feeding that. So on a plan view basis, as you zoom in, this is what it looks like. I'll call out a couple things for you to see. In the bottom center, that's the cathode plant. It sits next to the above ground heap leach pads that we're refurbishing right now in the bottom left-hand side. In the top left-hand side is where our mill is located, and the waste rock storage and the tailings that you see were generated not from the open pit, but from a deep underground that was shut and abandoned in 2019 and 2021 respectively. So what are we doing with all this infrastructure? We have camp, power plants, airstrip, copper processing plants. It's actually a very simple plan. We're just turning it on. So first, what we're doing right now is we are going to releach the heap leach pads, and I'll talk a little bit about those methods, and put it through the SXEW plant producing copper cathode. Again, we're expecting our first cathode in the third quarter, ramp up in the fourth quarter, and a full year of production next year. Second, after we go through that releach of the existing heap leaches, we're going to commit to the open pit. When we commit to the open pit, there's an oxide layer that sits on top of the sulfide below. We'll build pad 7, take material out of the open pit, stack that oxide material on pad 7, increase our SXEW production. Then we'll turn on that 50,000 ton float plant that we talked about earlier and process the sulfide ores through that. So it's a very staged, sequential, logical pattern. The break point for us is right now we're getting into production, and eventually we'll be committing to an open pit expansion. So how are we doing this? We're doing it with some really great partners. We've had McMahon, who's an Australian mining contractor. They've been on site with us for over a year now. Their subsidiary Decnal has been doing a lot of the earthworks and plants. PPM, who's a specialist hydromet operator, has been taking us through commissioning and into operations. And we're really happy with the plant. We've also been building an owner's team that has been leaning in, and just at the moment, on the journey that we've been and in the role that I'm in, I'm so excited about what's happening within our team. From a year ago to today, we've just been able to build out incredible capacity. We have this near-term producer copper and WA location. Those benefits have just allowed us to continue to hire fantastic people. And now we're at that point where we're a problem-solving machine. We're in the middle of a refurbishment. Refurbishments have lots of exciting things that pop up, and our team has just been leaning in on the ground and with our partners and solving problems and continuing to accelerate. I think it bodes really well for as we get into more bigger and complex projects on site. So the basics of the design, now I'm going to talk about the Releach program. The basics of the Releach program is we've got 17.2 million tons containing about 91,000 tons of copper sitting above ground. So it's an above ground resource. There's no mining. There's no crushing or screening. There's really very little physical handling. And the basics is you turn it over and you hit it with acid again. This is something that happens all around the world where people will go ahead and retreat their heaps to get a little bit more out and a little bit more out. So we tuned our PFS plan to make about 6,000 tons. And the limitations of that were really around how much of the blue could you keep going? Could we keep about 1.2 million tons of material under leach? And that was actually determined more by what do you need to dry it out, to strip it, to turn over the next area, and how do you kind of approach it like a layer cake. What's been really exciting, and we'll have some additional news out about this in the coming weeks, is that we looked around the world, we say, how are other people in 2026, how do you actually retreat your heap leach pads? And it turns out that if your heap leach pads can act as an above ground reservoir, you can actually just drill it, case it with PVC pipe, and inject solution directly into the heaps. And what that does for us, potentially, is it takes away that constraint of X, Y, and it adds the Z element. And so now we're working in kind of 3 dimensions. So what our trials have started to show us is that we're seeing what we want to see around connectivity on wells, on well spacing, and on the ability for the pads to handle pressurized injection. And that's going to be a very exciting result for us because it eliminates a lot of activity on site and it potentially debottlenecks our ability to put material under leach. Secondarily, as you can see on the bottom right-hand side, these leach pads, like many leach pads at the top, they've been rained on, they were the last to be recovered, so your grades at the top are relatively lower than further down in the column. And when you're drilling down into a heap leach pad, you can get access to the higher grade areas below quicker. So we have an increased grade profile. We have the ability potentially to put quite a lot more material under leach. So where does that put us? We're still executing on the base plan, right? We're still going to go ahead and do 6,000 tons out of our first phase. And how that happens in the plant, it's very specific. The plant was built in 2 phases. There's the A train, which you can see in the cell house, and also the mixer settlers on the left-hand side. The A train is its own independent wired and controlled area that was the original part of the plant. The expansion that we are bringing up as the newest part of the plant is called the B train, and it's separately modified. So what you should expect is over time, as we gain our confidence to generate more PLS, to generate more copper solution to be processed by the plant, we've already restored all the common control rooms and tanks and other areas that allow us to generate cathode, and now we'll incrementally bring on a few more cells and a few more mixer settlers to match what we're able to do in the heaps. That's all pretty exciting. The big profit, if you think in terms of profit pools, the big profit pool here really is the sulfide resource, 750,000 tons as opposed to 50,000 tons. To put that into context, in our 2024 PFS at 425 copper, that was about $9 billion of revenue sitting next to 2 processing plants already permitted. And so that's the opportunity for us. And what you can see on the right-hand side is this ends up being a 36 to 40,000 ton a year float plant when you expand the milling. And that's a substantial company, far bigger than where we sit today. And it's achievable really through refurbishing and turning on this plant. So what we're looking at right now is we've been doing quite a lot of work on site with McMahon on open pit mining costs, design work, and we'll be updating our reserve statement to include not only the oxide collar that I talked about before, but also the sequencing of the pit and realistic costs for today's execution plan. We have a couple other projects. Maroochydore is a very large copper project that sits about 100 kilometers away from Nifty. It's further on in the development chain, but it's definitely a defined resource that we're interested in bringing into our production plans in the outer years. And then we have just some amazing exploration ground. We've been out drilling and getting our lab results back. What we're asking the exploration team to do is generate effectively oxide for the SXEW, maybe 5-6 years out in our mine plan, and develop additional sulfide resources that can either extend life or increase volumes from what we already have at Nifty. So when you sum it up, quite a lot of this is actually just about turning things on and debottlenecking them. And then the rest of our growth is complementary and things that are going to increase from where we are. We feel pretty confident about Nifty as a base load generating well over 40,000 tons a year of copper in the foreseeable future. So what is that? Where are we today? Today we're sitting at about a 250-ish million market cap, depending on the day. We do have ample cash. We ended the quarter with $68.5 million cash, $7 million in marketable security. We're going to be spending that and investing it in projects that are going to deliver shareholder value. If you're not a shareholder, I'd welcome you to be one. I'm a large shareholder myself. And so please come find me if you want to talk more about Cyprium. Thanks for your time.